A large spacecraft descended from the sky, its metallic surface shimmering like liquid silver under the sun. It moved slowly, as if deliberately showing off its size and power. The people of Earth watched in awe and fear as the massive ship hovered above the planet's atmosphere. No one knew what to expect. Some thought it was the beginning of an invasion, while others hoped it might bring answers to humanity's biggest questions. The ship did not attack. Instead, a bright light emerged from its center, projecting a holographic figure onto the ground below. The figure introduced itself as Sylar 7, a representative of the Galactic Council. Its voice was calm, but carried an air of authority that demanded attention. Sylar 7 explained that the Council had been observing Earth for many years and believed it was time for humanity to join their federation. This federation, they claimed, was a union of advanced civilizations working together to achieve peace, prosperity, and progress across the galaxy. Governments around the world scrambled to respond. They quickly assembled a team of representatives to communicate with the aliens. Among them was Daniel Harper, a scientist who had spent most of his life studying the stars. He was chosen because of his knowledge of physics and space exploration. Also selected was Laura Bennett, a skilled diplomat known for her ability to find common ground even in the most difficult situations. Together, they were tasked with learning more about the Council's intentions and ensuring that humanity's interests were protected. At first glance, the Council's offer seemed too good to be true. Sylar 7 promised to share technology far beyond anything humans could imagine. Diseases would be cured, hunger would end, and wars would become a thing of the past. In return, Earth would need to agree to follow the Council's rules and allow them access to the planet's resources. Many leaders saw this as an opportunity to solve problems that had plagued humanity for centuries. Others, however, were skeptical. One person who wasn't ready to trust the Council was Emma Dawson, a journalist known for her investigative reports. She had always been curious about the unknown, but she also had a knack for spotting lies. As soon as news of the Council's arrival broke, Emma began digging into their claims. She interviewed scientists, historians, and even conspiracy theorists, trying to piece together any clues about the Council's true motives. Something about their perfect offer didn't sit right with her. Why would such an advanced civilization choose now to make contact? And why were they so eager to help a species they viewed as primitive? Meanwhile, Daniel and Laura boarded a small shuttle provided by the Council to visit their mothership. As they approached the alien craft, they couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. The ship was enormous, dwarfing everything they had ever seen. Inside, the walls glowed faintly, and strange symbols floated in the air like living things. Sylar 7 greeted them warmly, explaining that the Council wanted nothing more than to guide Earth toward a brighter future. But despite the welcoming atmosphere, both Daniel and Laura felt uneasy. There was something about the way Sylar 7 spoke, calm and reassuring, yet distant, that made it hard to fully trust them. Back on Earth, protests began to break out. Some people welcomed the Council's arrival, holding signs that read "Join the Stars" and "Peace through Unity." Others were less enthusiastic, chanting slogans like "Protect our planet" and "No to alien control." The division grew deeper as days passed, with no clear resolution in sight. For every person who believed the Council's promises, there was another who feared losing their freedom. As Daniel and Laura continued their discussions aboard the alien ship, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. Sylar 7's words sounded sincere, but their actions hinted at something more. The Council's representatives avoided answering direct questions about how exactly Earth's resources would be used. When pressed, they simply repeated vague phrases about mutual benefit and shared goals. It was enough to plant seeds of doubt in even the most optimistic minds. By the time Daniel and Laura returned to Earth, the world was buzzing with speculation. Everyone had an opinion, but no one had all the answers. The Council's plan seemed perfect on paper, But reality was proving to be much more complicated. The Galactic Council's promises continued to captivate the world. Tyler 7 had painted a picture of utopia, where humanity would finally be free from suffering. Advanced medicine would cure every disease, clean energy would power cities without pollution, and conflicts would dissolve under the Council's wise guidance. For many, it sounded like a dream come true. Leaders from nations around the globe eagerly signed agreements, eager to secure their place in this new era of prosperity. But not everyone was ready to celebrate. Emma Dawson spent her days chasing leads, trying to uncover the truth behind the Council's polished words. She interviewed scientists who warned that Earth's ecosystems might not survive the sudden introduction of alien technology. Others pointed out that history was filled with examples of powerful outsiders exploiting weaker groups under the guise of help. Emma began to notice patterns in the Council's behavior, subtle hints that their intentions weren't as pure as they claimed. They avoided answering specific questions about how Earth's resources would be used, and their promises lacked concrete details. Meanwhile, Daniel Harper and Laura Bennett found themselves at odds over what to do next. Daniel, ever the cautious scientist, wanted more time to study the Council's technology before making any decisions. He argued that rushing into an agreement could have unintended consequences. Laura, on the other hand, believed that humanity couldn't afford to turn down such a generous offer. The world was already facing climate disasters, food shortages, and endless wars. If the Council could provide solutions, wasn't it worth the risk? Their debates grew heated, but both agreed on one thing. Something about the Council felt off. As the days passed, strange events started to raise suspicions. Factories producing Council-supplied machines began experiencing malfunctions. In one case, a device designed to purify water exploded, injuring workers and contaminating an entire town's supply. Elsewhere, volunteers who signed up for early integration programs mysteriously disappeared. Families reported loved ones vanishing after being taken aboard the Council's ship for orientation. These incidents were dismissed by Council representatives as minor glitches or misunderstandings, but they fueled growing distrust among the public. Emma decided to dig deeper. She reached out to Daniel, hoping he might share her concerns. At first, he was hesitant. As a member of the negotiation team, he didn't want to jeopardize his position by appearing disloyal. But when Emma showed him documents hinting at hidden agendas, he couldn't ignore the evidence. Together, they began piecing together fragments of information, searching for proof that the Council's plan wasn't as altruistic as it seemed. Laura noticed the change in Daniel almost immediately. He became quieter during meetings, asking pointed questions that made Tyler 7 visibly uncomfortable. When she confronted him privately, he admitted that he and Emma were investigating the Council's claims. Laura was torn. Part of her wanted to believe the Council's promises, but another part couldn't ignore the mounting evidence against them. After much deliberation, she agreed to help, knowing full well the risks involved. One night, while reviewing classified files, the trio stumbled upon something alarming. A series of memos outlined plans to extract Earth's rare minerals and energy reserves, labeling them as critical assets for the Council's operations. The documents suggested that these resources would be harvested regardless of the environmental cost. Worse still, there was mention of population management protocols, implying that humans might lose control over their own lives once the Council took charge. The discovery shook them to their core. It was clear now that the Council's vision of utopia came at a steep price, one that humanity might not survive paying. Yet exposing the truth wouldn't be easy. The Council controlled the narrative, using their advanced technology to sway public opinion. Media outlets flooded the airwaves with glowing reports of progress and unity, overshadowing whispers of dissent. Protests were dismissed as fear-mongering, and skeptics were labeled as troublemakers. Despite the challenges, Daniel, Laura, and Emma knew they had to act. They couldn't let the Council manipulate humanity into surrendering its future without a fight. As they prepared to take their findings public, they braced themselves for the fallout. The Council's plan may have seemed perfect on the surface, but reality was far darker and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. As the days turned into weeks, the cracks in the Galactic Council's perfect plan began to widen. Strange occurrences that had once seemed isolated now formed a troubling pattern. Factories producing Council supply technology continued to malfunction, causing accidents that injured workers and destroyed vital infrastructure. In one town, a machine designed to generate clean energy overheated, sparking a fire that burned down an entire neighborhood. The Council dismissed these incidents as minor technical errors, but the public was growing restless. Emma Dawson worked tirelessly to connect the dots. She spent hours poring over leaked documents, interviewing whistleblowers, and analyzing footage of the Council's activities. Her investigation led her to a disturbing conclusion. The Council wasn't just careless. They were hiding something. One whistleblower, a technician named Mark, revealed that the machines sent to Earth weren't designed to help humanity. Instead, they were tools for extracting resources, disguised as gifts. Mark claimed the Council had no intention of sharing their advanced technology freely. Everything they gave came with strings attached, strings that tied Earth tighter and tighter to their control. Daniel Harper and Laura Bennett found themselves caught in the middle of the growing chaos. During a meeting aboard the alien ship, Xylar 7 announced plans to accelerate Earth's integration into the Federation. They proposed building massive extraction facilities across the planet, claiming they would bring jobs and prosperity. But Daniel noticed something odd. The locations chosen for these facilities were remote areas rich in rare minerals and untouched ecosystems. When he questioned Xylar 7 about the environmental impact, the alien leader simply replied, "Your concerns are noted, but progress requires sacrifice." Laura, too, began to see the Council in a new light. At first, she had believed their promises of unity and peace, but now she couldn't ignore the signs of manipulation. Families who had volunteered for early assimilation programs spoke of loved ones disappearing without explanation. Others reported being pressured into signing agreements they didn't fully understand. Laura realized the Council wasn't interested in cooperation. They were imposing their will, piece by piece. One evening, Emma arranged a secret meeting with Daniel and Laura. She brought them to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, far from prying eyes. There, she showed them the evidence she had gathered, schematics of the extraction machines, recordings of Xylar 7's evasive answers, and testimonies from people whose lives had been upended. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the truth sinking in. "We can't let this continue," Daniel said finally, his voice firm despite the fear in his eyes. "If we don't act now, it'll be too late." Laura nodded, though her hands trembled as she flipped through the documents. "But how do we stop them? They have all the power." Emma leaned forward, her expression determined. "We expose them. If the world sees what they're really doing, they'll have no choice but to fight back." The trio devised a risky plan. They would infiltrate the Council's ship to gather more evidence, proof that couldn't be ignored. It was dangerous, but they knew it was their only chance. To pull it off, they needed help. Emma reached out to Sophie Carter, a young engineer who had worked on reverse engineering Council tech. Sophie agreed to assist, providing them with access codes and blueprints of the ship's layout. As they prepared for their mission, tensions on Earth reached a boiling point. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, demanding transparency from the Council. Governments wavered, unsure whether to side with their people or the powerful aliens. Some nations resisted, refusing to allow extraction facilities to be built on their soil. Others complied, hoping to gain favor with the Council. The divide grew deeper, threatening to tear humanity apart. On the night of the infiltration, Daniel, Laura, and Emma met at a secluded airstrip. Sophie had arranged transportation, a small shuttle capable of bypassing the Council's defenses. As they boarded, Daniel glanced at the others, his heart pounding. He knew the odds were against them, but he also knew they couldn't stand by and watch the Council destroy everything they loved. Whatever happened next, they were ready to face it together. The shuttle carrying Daniel, Laura, and Emma approached the massive alien ship under the cover of darkness. Sophie had timed their arrival to coincide with a high-profile diplomatic event hosted by the Council, ensuring that most of the ship's security forces would be occupied elsewhere. The trio exchanged nervous glances as they neared the glowing hull of the spacecraft. It was an intimidating sight, smooth, metallic, and impossibly large. But they knew there was no turning back now. Using the access code Sophie had provided, they docked at a secondary entrance far from the main activity. The door hissed open, revealing the dimly lit corridor. The air inside felt strange, cool, and slightly electric, as if charged with energy. Laura took the lead, her steps cautious but determined. Daniel followed close behind, clutching a small device designed to record everything they encountered. Emma brought up the rear, her eyes darting nervously in every direction. They moved quickly, aware that any misstep could mean capture or worse. As they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, they passed strange symbols floating in midair and alien workers who paid them little attention. Their disguises, a mix of council uniforms and forged identification badges, seemed to be working so far. But the tension was palpable. Every sound made them flinch. Every shadow seemed like it might conceal danger. At one point, they ducked into a side room to avoid a patrol of council enforcers. The wait felt endless, their breathing shallow as they pressed themselves against the wall. Finally, they'd reached their destination, a restricted data hub where the council stored sensitive information. Daniel knelt by the console, his fingers flying over the controls as he tried to bypass the security protocols. Sweat dripped down his forehead as the screen flashed warnings in an unfamiliar language. "Almost there," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Laura stood guard, peering out into the hallway while Emma watched the door, ready to signal if anyone approached. When the system unlocked, they found themselves staring at files labeled in cryptic terms. Daniel quickly began downloading everything he could: blueprints, memos, logs detailing the Council's true plans for Earth. As he worked, something caught Laura's eye on one of the screens. It was a map of Earth, marked with red zones indicating areas targeted for resource extraction. Entire regions were highlighted, including cities and natural reserves. Worse still, there were timelines showing when these areas would be processed. The word sent a chill down her spine. "We need to go," Emma whispered urgently, noticing movement outside the door. Daniel nodded, ejecting the data drive just as footsteps echoed down the corridor. The group slipped out of the room, moving faster now. They retraced their steps, trying to stay calm despite the rising panic. But luck wasn't on their side. A pair of council guards appeared around a corner, blocking their path. Thinking quickly, Ryan Mitchell, who had volunteered to act as a distraction, stepped forward from a nearby alcove. He shouted loudly, drawing the guards' attention away from the others. "Go," Ryan urged, waving them onward. His face was grim but resolute. Daniel hesitated, torn between gratitude and guilt, but Laura grabbed his arm and pulled him along. They couldn't afford to waste time. As they ran, the distant sound of scuffling and raised voices told them Ryan had been caught. Back aboard the shuttle, the weight of what had happened hit them hard. Daniel stared at the data drive in his hand, knowing the evidence it contained could change everything, or cost them their lives. Laura sat silently, tears streaming down her face as she thought about Ryan's sacrifice. Emma clenched her fists, anger burning in her chest. They had done what they set out to do, but the price had been steep. When they returned to Earth, they transmitted the data to news outlets, government officials, and anyone who would listen. The truth spread like wildfire, sparking outrage across the globe. Protests intensified, and nations that had once welcomed the Council began to withdraw their support. Humanity was divided, but for the first time, it was united in its defiance. The Council's perfect plan was unraveling, and Earth was ready to fight back. The leaked data from the Council's ship ignited a firestorm across Earth. News outlets broadcasted the shocking revelations, maps of targeted regions, plans for resource extraction, and cold calculations about human populations. The Council's true intentions were laid bare for everyone to see. What had once seemed like a generous offer was now exposed as exploitation masked by promises of progress. People took to the streets in droves, demanding action against the invaders. Governments scrambled to respond, some calling for immediate resistance while others urged caution. Daniel Harper, Laura Bennett, and Emma Dawson became reluctant heroes overnight. Their bravery in uncovering the truth inspired millions, but it also made them targets. The Council issued a statement condemning the leaks as misinformation and accusing the trio of endangering humanity's future. Stylar 7 appeared on global broadcasts, its holographic form projecting calm authority. "Your leaders have been missiled," it declared. "We seek only to uplift you." Yet some would sow discord for their own gain. Despite the Council's attempts to control the narrative, the evidence was undeniable. Protesters chanted slogans like "Earth belongs to us" and "No more lies." Cities glowed with candlelight vigils as people mourned those who had disappeared or been harmed by the Council's actions. Resistance groups formed overnight, uniting ordinary citizens with soldiers, scientists, and activists. Among them was Sophie Carter, the engineer who had helped Daniel and his team infiltrate the alien ship. She used her knowledge of Council technology to develop countermeasures, giving humanity a fighting chance. The Council didn't wait long to retaliate. Enforcers descended on major cities, rounding up anyone suspected of involvement in the leak. Homes were raided, communications disrupted, and curfews imposed. But the crackdown only fueled the flames of rebellion. In one bold move, a coalition of nations launched an attack using reverse-engineered Council tech. Piloted by volunteers, including Sophie, the human fleet engaged the Council's forces in orbit. Explosions lit up the night sky as ships clashed in a desperate battle for survival. On the ground, Laura delivered a stirring speech that reached millions through underground networks. Standing before a crowd of protesters in a city square, she spoke with passion and conviction. "They want to take our home, our freedom, our future," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "But we will not let them. Together, we are stronger than fear, stronger than greed, stronger than lies." Her words resonated deeply, rallying people to stand firm against the Council's oppression. Meanwhile, Daniel endured harsh interrogation aboard the alien ship. Captured after the infiltration mission, he refused to reveal any details about the resistance despite intense pressure. His captors tried everything: psychological manipulation, physical threats, even offers of freedom in exchange for cooperation. But Daniel held fast. He thought of Ryan's sacrifice, of Laura and Emma risking their lives, and of all the people counting on him to stay silent. Each time they asked for information, he simply repeated, "You've already lost." To his surprise, not all the Council members supported Stylar 7's methods. During one session, a dissident alien named Cal 3 secretly approached Daniel. Cal 3 revealed that many within the Council had grown uneasy about the exploitation of weaker civilizations. They saw Earth's resistance as proof that such tactics bred resentment rather than unity. Though wary, Daniel sensed an opportunity. If even a few Council members questioned their leadership, it could weaken the Council's grip on humanity. Back on Earth, the tide began to turn. The human fleet, though outnumbered, fought with determination and ingenuity. Using improvised strategies and unpredictable maneuvers, they managed to disable several Council ships. On the ground, coordinated attacks disrupted extraction facilities and supply lines. The Council's forces, accustomed to quick victories over less advanced species, struggled to adapt to humanity's fierce resolve. As the battle raged on, hope flickered back to life. For the first time since the Council's arrival, Earth stood united, not just as nations or factions, but as one people fighting for their shared future. The Council's plan may have seemed perfect at first, but reality had proven far more complex and far more dangerous. Humanity was battered but unbroken, ready to face whatever came next. The battle between Earth's forces and the Galactic Council reached its peak. Explosions lit up the sky as human ships clashed with the Council's fleet in orbit. On the ground, resistance fighters launched coordinated attacks against Council installations, determined to reclaim their planet. The odds were still against humanity, but the fight had become personal. Every person involved knew they were fighting not just for survival, but for the freedom to shape their own destiny. Daniel Harper remained a prisoner aboard the alien ship, enduring relentless interrogation. His captors tried everything to break him. Long hours of isolation, blinding lights, and endless questions. But he refused to give in. Daniel's mind often drifted to Ryan's sacrifice and the faces of those who had trusted him with their lives. He thought about Laura's speech and Emma's determination. These memories gave him strength, even when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. One day, Cal 3 returned to Daniel's cell. The dissident alien had grown more vocal in opposing Sylar 7's leadership, risking its own safety to speak out. This time, Cal 3 brought news. Divisions within the Council were deepening. Many members questioned whether Earth was worth the cost of continued conflict. "Your people have proven stronger than we expected," Cal 3 admitted. "Sylar 7's methods are failing, and others are beginning to see that." Daniel seized the opportunity. "Then help us," he urged. "If you want to stop this madness, now is your chance." Cal 3 hesitated, but eventually agreed to assist. It provided Daniel with critical information about the Council's weaknesses, including details about their command structure and vulnerabilities in their defenses. With this knowledge, Daniel devised a plan to disrupt the Council's operations from within. Meanwhile, on Earth, Laura Bennett and Emma Dawson worked tirelessly to keep the resistance organized. Laura traveled across the globe, rallying support and ensuring that supplies reached fighters on the front lines. Her speeches continued to inspire millions, reminding them why they were fighting. Emma focused on spreading the truth, using every available channel to expose the Council's atrocities. Together, they became symbols of hope in a dark time. Sophie Carter played a crucial role in turning the tide. Using her expertise, she modified captured Council technology to create powerful weapons and shields for Earth's forces. Her innovations gave humanity an edge in battle, allowing them to hold their ground against superior numbers. Pilots cheered her name as her upgrades helped them take down enemy ships one by one. As the days passed, the Council's forces began to falter. Their once unstoppable fleet suffered heavy losses, and their ground troops struggled to maintain control. Morale among the invaders plummeted as they realized humanity would not back down. Sylar 7 grew desperate, ordering increasingly brutal measures to crush the rebellion. Entire cities were targeted for destruction, but instead of breaking the resistance, these actions only strengthened their resolve. In orbit, the final showdown unfolded. Human pilots executed daring maneuvers, targeting the Council's flagship with precision strikes. Inside the ship, Daniel put his plan into action. With Cal 3's help, he sabotaged key systems, disabling the ship's weapons and communications. Chaos erupted as alarms blared and crew members scrambled to respond. Sylar 7 demanded answers, its calm demeanor shattered by frustration and fear. On Earth, the combined efforts of the resistance pushed the Council's forces into retreat. Extraction facilities were destroyed, supply chains collapsed, and enforcers withdrew under relentless attacks. The Council's grip on the planet loosened, and for the first time, victory felt possible. When the flagship's systems failed, Sylar 7 had no choice but to order a withdrawal. The alien leader addressed Earth one last time, its voice laced with anger and disbelief. "You have made a grave mistake," it warned. "This is not over." Then the massive ship ascended into the sky, followed by the remnants of the Council's fleet. Humanity watched as their oppressors fled, leaving behind a scared but defiant world. Though battered and bruised, Earth celebrated its hard-fought victory. The Council's perfect plan had been undone by the courage and unity of ordinary people. But as the dust settled, everyone knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and the fight for freedom might never truly end. Still, humanity stood ready, stronger and more united than ever before. The Council's retreat marked the end of one battle, but the scars left behind were deep. Cities lay in ruins, their streets empty and buildings reduced to rubble. Families mourned loved ones lost during the conflict, while survivors struggled to rebuild what had been destroyed. The cost of freedom was high, but humanity refused to let despair take hold. Instead, people worked together, sharing resources and helping neighbors recover. It wasn't easy, but there was a sense of purpose, a shared determination to rise from the ashes stronger than before. Daniel Harper returned to Earth after his daring sabotage aboard the Council's ship. He was greeted as a hero, though he didn't see himself that way. For him, it was Ryan's sacrifice and the bravery of countless others that had truly made the difference. Daniel reunited with Laura Bennett and Emma Dawson, the three of them standing side by side as they surveyed the damage. There was no time for rest. The work ahead would be long and difficult. Laura focused on uniting the fractured nations of Earth. She traveled tirelessly, meeting with leaders and encouraging cooperation. "We've proven we can stand together," she told them. "Let's not waste this chance to build something better." Her words resonated, and slowly alliances began to form, not out of fear, but out of hope for a brighter future. Governments pooled their knowledge and resources, creating programs to heal the planet and prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. Emma continued her role as a voice for truth. She documented the war, the sacrifices, the victories, and the lessons learned, so that no one would forget how close humanity had come to losing everything. Her reports reached every corner of the globe, inspiring people to stay vigilant. "The Council may be gone for now," she wrote, "but we must never stop asking questions or fighting for what's right." Her words became a rallying cry, reminding everyone that freedom required constant effort. Sophie Carter turned her attention to repairing Earth's damaged infrastructure. Using the technology she had reverse-engineered from the Council, she helped develop cleaner energy sources, advanced medical treatments, and sustainable farming methods. Her innovations transformed communities, giving people tools to rebuild their lives. Sophie often said, "We won't let their tech control us anymore. We'll use it to make our world better." But the galaxy remained vast and unpredictable. Though the Council had retreated, many wondered if they would return, and whether humanity could defend itself next time. To address these concerns, Daniel proposed the creation of a global defense network. "We need to protect ourselves," he explained, "not just from the Council, but from anyone who might threaten our freedom." Scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked together to design new ships, weapons, and early warning systems. Humanity was no longer naive. It was ready to face whatever came its way. As months passed, life began to improve. Crops grew again in fields once thought barren, and laughter returned to places where silence had reigned. Memorials were built to honor those who had given their lives, ensuring their sacrifices would never be forgotten. Children played in rebuilt parks, unaware of the hardships their parents had endured, but also unburdened by the fears that had once gripped the world. Still, the memory of the Council lingered. Xylar 7's parting words echoed in the minds of many. Asterisk, "This is not over." Asterisk, no one doubted that the Council would regroup and plan their next move. But instead of living in fear, humanity chose to focus on growth. They studied the Council's technology, learning how to adapt it without repeating the mistakes of the past. They trained pilots, expanded their fleets, and strengthened alliances. One evening, as Daniel stood beneath a star-filled sky, he felt a mix of pride and caution. Humanity had proven its strength, but the universe was full of unknowns. Turning to Laura and Emma, who stood beside him, he smiled. "Whatever happens," he said, "we'll face it together." And so, Earth moved forward, scared but resilient, united by the belief that even in the darkest times, hope could light the way. Years passed since the Council's retreat, and Earth transformed in ways no one could have imagined. The scars of war remained, but they became reminders of resilience rather than defeat. Humanity had taken the lessons learned from its struggle and turned them into opportunities for growth. Cities were rebuilt with sustainable designs, powered by clean energy systems developed from reverse-engineered Council technology. Farms thrived using advanced irrigation methods, and medical breakthroughs saved lives that once would have been lost. The planet was healing, and so were its people. Daniel Harper spent his days working at a research facility dedicated to studying alien technology. He led a team of scientists who carefully analyzed every piece of equipment left behind by the Council. Their goal wasn't just to understand how it worked, but to ensure it could never be used against humanity again. Daniel often thought about Ryan and the others who had sacrificed everything. "We owe them this," he told his team. "They gave us a second chance, and we can't waste it." Laura Bennett became a global ambassador, traveling to newly formed alliances on Earth, and even making contact with distant civilizations. Her speeches emphasized peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. She carried with her the stories of those who had fought and died during the war, ensuring their voices were heard across the stars. Many alien species admired Earth's courage and unity, forging friendships that helped humanity take its first steps into the wider galaxy. Emma Dawson continued to write, chronicling Earth's journey from near destruction to renewal. Her reports reached millions, inspiring future generations to remain vigilant and compassionate. She also established an independent watchdog group tasked with monitoring any extraterrestrial activity near Earth. "Trust is earned," she often said, "and we won't let ourselves be fooled again." Her work ensured that humanity stayed informed and prepared. Sophie Carter's innovations reshaped daily life. Her advancements in energy, medicine, and transportation revolutionized how people lived. She also played a key role in developing Earth's new defense systems, creating tools designed not for conquest, but for protection. Sophie believed in using knowledge wisely, always asking herself whether her creations would help or harm. Her dedication earned her the gratitude of millions. Despite these achievements, the shadow of the Galactic Council still loomed. Xylar 7's warning proved true. They hadn't given up. Reports began to surface of Council ships patrolling distant star systems, gathering allies and resources. Some feared another attack was inevitable, but humanity was no longer the same vulnerable species it had been before. Earth's defenses were stronger, its people more united, and its resolve unshakable. One day, a message arrived from deep space. It came not from the Council, but from Cal 3, the dissident alien who had helped Daniel aboard the flagship. The transmission was brief but meaningful. Asterisk, "The Council grows weaker. Your actions inspired change. Stay strong." Asterisk. Though cryptic, the message brought hope. Humanity realized it wasn't alone in seeking justice and fairness. It had allies among the stars. As Earth looked toward the future, its priorities shifted. Exploration replaced fear, and curiosity replaced suspicion. New ships ventured into the unknown, carrying ambassadors like Laura and researchers like Daniel. They sought not only to learn but to share, to offer Earth's story as proof that even the smallest light could shine brightly in the darkest corners of the universe. On a quiet evening, Daniel, Laura, and Emma gathered at a hilltop overlooking a thriving city. The sky glowed with stars, each one a reminder of the vastness beyond. "We've come so far," Laura said softly. "And there's still so much farther to go," Emma added, smiling. Daniel nodded, his gaze steady. "No matter what happens, we'll face it together. That's what makes us strong." In the distance, children laughed as they chased fireflies, unaware of the battles fought to give them this moment of peace. Humanity stood ready, its eyes fixed on the horizon. The road ahead was uncertain, but Earth had proven it could endure and thrive, no matter the challenge. Together, they stepped forward, determined to carve their own path among the stars. The years rolled on, and Earth continued to grow stronger. The scars of the past became part of its story, a reminder of how far humanity had come. New generations were born into a world shaped by resilience and unity. Schools taught not just science and history, but also the lessons of courage, cooperation, and caution. Children learned about the Council's invasion and humanity's fight for freedom, ensuring that no one would forget the cost of standing up for what was right. Daniel Harper, now older but still sharp-minded, spent much of his time mentoring young scientists. He often told them stories of the war, not to glorify it, but to show how curiosity and determination could make a difference. "We didn't have all the answers back then," he'd say, "but we asked the right questions." His students admired him not just for his knowledge, but for his humility. Daniel never claimed to be a hero. He simply believed in doing what needed to be done. Laura Bennett's work as an ambassador took her farther than ever before. She traveled to distant planets, meeting alien species eager to learn about Earth's journey. Many were surprised by humanity's strength and adaptability. "You stood against the Council," they'd ask, their voices filled with awe. Laura always smiled and replied, "Not because we were strong, but because we were united." Her words inspired hope among civilizations that had long lived under the Council's shadow. Emma Dawson remained a voice for truth and accountability. Though retired from active reporting, she wrote books and gave lectures, sharing her experiences with anyone willing to listen. Her memoirs became bestsellers, read by people across the globe. More importantly, the watchdog group she founded kept watch over Earth's borders, monitoring for any sign of trouble. Thanks to Emma's efforts, humanity stayed alert without giving in to fear. Sophie Carter's innovations continued to shape the future. Her focus shifted toward space exploration, designing ships capable of traveling faster and farther than ever before. These vessels weren't built for war, but for discovery. Sophie dreamed of finding new worlds where humanity could build bridges instead of walls. "The universe is big enough for everyone," she liked to say. "We just need to find common ground." One day, Earth received another message from deep space. This time, it wasn't from Cal 3 or the Council. It came from a coalition of alien species calling themselves the Free Stars Alliance. Their transmission was clear. "Your resistance inspired us. Together, we can challenge the Council's dominance." The message sparked debates across Earth. Some feared joining forces with unknown allies, while others saw it as an opportunity to protect not just their own planet, but others facing oppression. After careful consideration, Earth decided to reach out. Representatives, led by Laura, met with the Free Stars Alliance aboard a neutral station orbiting a distant star. The gathering was tense at first, but trust grew as both sides shared their stories. For the first time, humanity realized it wasn't alone in opposing the Council. Others had suffered under their rule, and now they wanted to fight back. Back on Earth, preparations began for a joint mission. Ships were equipped with Earth's best technology, blending human ingenuity with alien designs. Pilots trained alongside members of the Alliance, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses. It was a fragile partnership, but one rooted in shared purpose. As the fleet prepared to launch, Daniel, Laura, and Emma stood together once more. They looked out at the stars, knowing the risks ahead. "This isn't just about Earth anymore," Laura said quietly. "It's about doing what's right," Emma added, her voice firm. Daniel nodded. "We've faced worse. Whatever comes next, we'll handle it together." The ships departed, carrying representatives from Earth and the Free Stars Alliance into the unknown. Their goal was simple: to confront the Council and demand justice, not just for themselves, but for every civilization trapped under its control. Humanity had started as a small planet fighting for survival, but now it stood as a beacon of hope for others. Among the stars, Earth's legacy grew, not as conquerors or victims, but as explorers, defenders, and dreamers. The road ahead was uncertain, But one thing was clear: humanity's spirit would guide them through.